He was paying in coins when the cashier saw the bronze star on his chest and broke down in tears. The store went silent, but what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The pharmacy's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead, casting a sterile glow on the linoleum tiles that had yellowed with age. A faint scent of rubbing alcohol and hand sanitizer hung in the air. Julie Barnes, leaning slightly on the worn laminate counter, was already weary despite it being barely past 10 a.m. Her name tag tugged at the fabric of her polo shirt each time she shifted, a subtle reminder that this job, temporary as it was, demanded more patience than she often had to give. She was used to chatter, to coughs and complaints and coupon haggling, but when the bell above the front door jingled and the old man entered, a hush settled. Not immediate, but slow, like a curtain falling. He moved like the world weighed on every joint, each step taken with the kind of deliberate caution that only comes from years of pain. His shoes were unevenly worn, one sole flapping with the whisper of torn rubber. The battered jar in his liver-spotted hands clinked with each step, the sound oddly delicate for something so desperate. His presence wasn't loud, but it pressed on the air, made people fidget. Julie watched him approach, heart sinking a little when she saw the jar. These weren't rolled coins or a child's piggy bank offering. These were his savings. Every dime had a history. A returned can, a skipped lunch, a spare quarter found in a parking lot. His fingers trembled not just from age, but exhaustion. "Just the insulin and heart pills, miss," he said, setting the jar down with care like it contained not metal but something fragile. "That's all I need." Julie tapped a few keys, barely meeting his eyes. $67.43 and blinked in red on the screen. She told him the total gently, and he began counting. 1 nickel, 2, 3. Her cheeks flushed, not from shame but the awareness of how people were watching. The line was growing. People shifting weight, checking phones, muttering. Behind him, a young man muttered, "This isn't a bank." Loud enough to be heard, but soft enough to feign innocence. Another snorted, "Let someone pay for him already." Julie's hand twitched. She wanted to snap, but she didn't. Instead, she looked down, then saw it. The metal. Pinned just above his heart, hanging crookedly on a coat that had seen too many winters. Bronze. Dull but unmistakable. She blinked, lips parting as a memory surfaced. Her grandfather's photo, smiling in his uniform, bronze star on his chest. "Sir, is that the bronze star?" The man hesitated. His hands paused mid-count. His shoulders sank slightly, but not with shame, more like a weary acceptance. "Yes, ma'am," he said, voice quieter now. "From the jungle. Vietnam." Julie stared at him. Not the coins, not the coat, not the trembling fingers, but at him. And something inside her shifted. Julie's breath faltered, a jagged hitch in her throat. The bronze star. She knew it well, not just as a decoration, but as a symbol of something deeply sacred in her family's history. Her grandfather, a man of towering, quiet dignity, had one just like it mounted in a cherrywood case back home. It had sat for decades on the mantel, untouched, preserved like a relic. She'd grown up staring at it, imagining the kind of man it took to earn such a thing. The kind who crawled through fire for his brothers, who bled and kept moving. And now, right in front of her, that same metal clung to the chest of a man counting out dimes for insulin. Her chest tightened, not from pity, but something closer to grief. Grief for what time forgets, what society overlooks. The air between her and the old man thickened with unspoken truth. This wasn't a man begging. This was a man insisting on his dignity, fiercely gripping it with calloused hands. When she reached forward, Instinctively trying to lift the burden from him, he stopped her with a quiet firmness that cut deeper than a shout. "I fought for this country," he said, eyes steady. "I won't beg in it." It wasn't a refusal born of pride. It was armor. Decades of it. Julie felt her composure crack. The steadiness she held on to as a cashier, as a future nurse, as someone who'd built a professional mask, shattered. Emotion surged through her, hot and blinding. The jar of coins blurred in her vision, edges melting under tears she could no longer hold back. "Sir, please," she whispered. "Let me. I'll cover it." He gave a small shake of the head, softer now. Not cruel, just resolved. "But thank you," he murmured. "Thank you for seeing me." And there it was, the truth at the center of it all. He didn't want handouts. He didn't want applause. He just wanted to be seen, truly seen. Not as a burden, not as a relic, but as a man who had mattered once and still did. The world around them fell still. No one spoke. The shifting, the foot-tapping, the whispered impatience, it had all vanished. Julie looked up through the haze of her tears and found silence. The man in the polo shirt no longer smirked. His gaze was on the floor, shame washing over his features like a slow tide. Then a voice broke through the hush. Deep. Steady. A different kind of weight. "I was in Fallujah," the man said, stepping forward. He wore a charcoal suit, the crease still sharp, his bearing unmistakably military. "Marine, you and me, same team." He didn't wait for permission, just pulled a crisp 100 from his wallet and laid it between them like an offering. Julie's voice trembled as she spoke. "Thank you, sir." But the Marine's eyes never left the old soldier's. "No," he said with quiet conviction. "Thank him." Harold Simmons lived in a rust-stained trailer 2 miles past the last traffic light in town, where the cracked asphalt thinned into gravel and forgotten things gathered. Discarded tires, satellite dishes pointing nowhere, and time-worn souls like him. Inside, the air smelled faintly of old paper, rust, and brewed coffee long since gone cold. His world was small but ordered. A single recliner positioned in front of a flickering tube television, a shelf bowed under the weight of worn paperbacks, and a chipped coffee mug with the word Brotherhood printed in faded block letters. After Vietnam, Harold had returned to a country unsure what to do with men like him. Men trained to survive hell, and then expected to forget it. He had tried. God knows he'd tried. First with construction, his hands still bore the calluses from 30 years of swinging hammers and tying rebar. Then with odd jobs, night janitor, cemetery caretaker, part-time bus mechanic. But the war had hollowed something out in him. Not bitterness, he never blamed the world, but distance. As if the part of him that could connect had been buried in the jungle, alongside men whose names he still whispered in his sleep. Julie couldn't stop thinking about him, not just because of the medal or the coins, or the way he refused help without an ounce of bitterness. It was the dignity. The way he had stood there, unbent by circumstance, invisible to most, but not to her. That night, she sat on her bedroom floor, an open box of family photos beside her. Her fingers trembled as she peeled back old memories, searching for confirmation of what her heart already suspected. Then she found it. A black and white photo. 2 young soldiers in camouflage, arms slung around each other's shoulders. One was her grandfather. Broad smile, familiar jawline. The other, leaner, with sharper cheekbones and a quiet watchfulness in his eyes. Her breath hitched. She turned the photo over, scribbled in faint ink, Dan and Harold, Fu Bai. 69. She grabbed her phone, fingers numb, and dialed. Her mother's voice answered, soft with sleep. Julie? Mom, I need to ask you something. Grandpa's old unit. Do you remember anyone named Harold Simmons? Silence stretched. Then her mother's voice, startled and slow. Harold Simmons? My God, that's your grandpa's platoon brother. He saved him, pulled him out after a mine blew. Your grandfather never forgot that, never stopped talking about him. Julie's legs gave way beneath her, the photo still clutched in her hand. He saved Grandpa, she whispered, stunned. A pause. Then her mother's voice, thick with something like awe. Yes, sweetheart, he did. The sun was still low in the sky when Julie turned off the main road and onto the narrow gravel path that led to the trailer park on Route 16. Mist clung to the roadside ditches, and the frost of early spring still lingered on windshields and fence posts. Her hands were tight on the steering wheel, not from doubt, but from the weight of what she carried. In the passenger seat beside her lay an envelope, thick with purpose, a check her mother had written without hesitation, and the photograph that had reopened a chapter long closed by time. When she reached Lot 12, she sat for a moment, engine ticking in the cold air. The trailer before her was the same as she remembered. Thin aluminum siding dulled by years of sun, a broken step reinforced with 2 cinder blocks, and wind chimes that rattled with an eerie metallic breath. She could see a flicker of movement behind the window curtain. He was home. Julie stepped out slowly, feet crunching the gravel, her breath visible in the chill. She didn't knock, just waited, standing straight, like the granddaughter of a soldier ought to. The door creaked open. Harold appeared in the same frayed coat, the bronze star still pinned just above his heart. His eyes blinked in the light. Miss Barnes? She stepped forward and held out the photo with both hands. You saved my grandfather, Dan Whitaker. He never stopped talking about you. His eyes dropped to the picture. His hand reached out, slow and uncertain, and when his fingers touched the worn edge of the photo, they lingered. His knuckles were mottled with age, but they trembled now, not from frailty, but from something deeper. Reverence. Recognition. Fubai, he murmured, voice cracking. That was the morning after we lost Eddie. We just finished burying him. Julie swallowed hard. My mom said you pulled Grandpa out after the mine hit. Harold nodded, silent for a long moment. Then, his voice barely audible. I never knew he made it back home. Julie reached into her coat and drew out the envelope. He did, because of you. And now I think it's time someone did something for you. When she handed it to him, Harold took it cautiously, expecting a card or letter. But when he saw the check, his eyes widened. No, he said, shaking his head. I can't. She placed her hand gently over his. You earned this. Not today, 50 years ago. His lips parted, but no sound came. Moisture rimmed his eyes and spilled quietly down his weathered cheeks. He looked at the check, then back to her. Tell your mother I remember the wedding, he whispered. She was just a girl in a yellow dress. Your grandfather said I was a hero. I never believed him. Julie smiled through the lump in her throat. I think you're about to. That afternoon, the pharmacy stood quiet, humming with the usual rhythm of routine. But something had changed. Behind the counter, framed in oak and glass, a bronze star gleamed beneath the store's soft lighting. Beside it, a photo. 2 young men in jungle fatigues, shoulder to shoulder, not yet haunted by time. And beneath it all, the unspoken truth that some debts can't be repaid in dollars, but in dignity. Voiceover. Sometimes all it takes is one moment of recognition to restore a forgotten hero.